Bad idea.
You've made
Bad
horrible
idea.
mistakes today. Hello, everybody, and welcome to EXPN. My name is Matt.
I'm Francis.
And welcome to another installment of our beautiful discussion table, or whatever we do
The table
here.
you can't see,
What-
but I swear it's in front of us.
What do we just do? We just talk.
Yeah, I mean, I figure we can keep this going on for a while. You know, maybe for an infinity. Talk about a couple wars, you know. Wait, infinity. War. Infinity
Yeah.
War.
This guy and his jokes.
Thank you, Ryan Stiles, for that horrible segue idea.
Shout out to that. But anyway, as you may have been able to perceive, our topic today is going to be franchises. Now, his nickname might be franchise, but we're talking about that kind of franchise in game, film, TV shows sometimes,
Book.
or multiple mediums,
Book,
to
comic.
be perfectly honest.
All of the above.
All the above. That's why I made that dumb
Actually,
Infinity War
I
joke.
can't think of anything that's been everything. I guess Marvel, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, by the time this video is being recorded, Infinity War has not come out yet. By the time this goes up,
It'll
Infinity
be out
War
for a couple
will have
weeks.
been out. So when it does come up, don't worry about the spoilers, because I think we'll both have seen it by that
Probably.
point.
I mean, the interesting thing is for me is like I usually don't get that excited about superhero stuff in general.
Yeah.
But Marvel has this like good talent of, or not even talent, but like skill of making superhero movies that aren't superhero movies.
Elaborate is a good word.
Well, it's like Ant-Man for one. It was a superhero movie, but it was also a heist movie.
Oh yeah, I totally get that. There was a lot of different stuff where the first Iron Man movie was less of a superhero movie about Iron Man and more like this one guy's changing heart and mind towards his personality, and
That's just the main character happens to be.
which,
a
to be
superhero.
fair, is what a superhero should be in a movie.
Well, of course,
Should be.
a character in a movie, especially a main character, has to be dynamic in some way. It has to show vulnerability, and that's the biggest issue with a lot of superhero stuff,
Yeah.
where it's just like, well, they're super strong. What's going to hurt them?
I think that's a more recent change in hearts and minds these days, because think about the 1970s Superman movie. That was
Yeah.
less about. I mean, no, I'm not saying that he wasn't well acted and didn't show the character well and great, because that movie's like,
Well, people just
nostalgic.
wanted to see them, like, they wanted to put themselves in Superman's shoes and be like, I am invincible.
Yeah, absolutely. And like those first Michael Keaton Batman movies, they wanted that dark tone and environment. They didn't want to necessarily have a giant exposition on Batman the character.
Although I'd argue that the good Batman movies have a similar vein that the Marvel movies now do, where the best Batman movies are not superhero movies, they are detective movies, where
Yeah.
Batman happens to be the main character.
Yeah, but the different stuff that makes the best aspects of that superhero character shine.
Yeah.
So anyway, as you may have noticed, we're going to be going very into some detail with superhero movies.
Very
because
into some detail.
correct my grammar and just roast me. It's fine. But anyway, let's start from the top and just ask a general question. What is a franchise, Mr. Franchise?
Clearly, I'm the expert on this. But it's weird because there's multiple ways to define it. Like, I know some people that would argue that BioShock, the games, or the game series, is a franchise. I'd argue not. I'd argue that it's a series. To me, a franchise, like, you could argue that a franchise can be in one medium, but for me, a franchise is something that comes out in multiple different mediums.
Yeah, I think a franchise is something that can really span into multiple genres. Like, it can have a good game series. It can have a good film series.
Right.
It can maybe have...
A good TV series.
Yeah, a good TV series, spin-offs, a lot of world building, a lot of lore that like can be looked into that may have not been shown in any of those other mediums just mentioned. Like,
And obviously
stuff
it
that
doesn't have-
captures imagination.
Right. Obviously, it doesn't have to be in multiple mediums. Like, the big definition for me is more that it has multiple series. Like, Halo the video games on its own, I would call a franchise now, because, like, obviously it's a franchise because it's in multiple mediums, but because the games now have multiple series.
Yeah, they have multiple series. They have a lot of lore tied into them that's
Right.
not really into the main campaigns or anything like that.
If you take out the Harry Potter books, even, the movies are it's now a movie franchise as well.
Yeah, it's a movie franchise. And you could say that the whole Harry Potter brand is a franchise.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely, because of the book's popularity, because of just the lore popularity,
And now
of the
Fantastic
movies,
Beasts.
and now Fantastic Beasts series.
I need to
which,
see that.
Yeah, I also need to see that. Ooh.
But the funny thing is, too, for me, with Harry Potter at least, it's not very much a traditional franchise where it's got comics, books, all that jazz. It does have books, it does have the movies, but it also has Pottermore, where
Yeah.
you don't see a lot of the lore now doesn't come from the books themselves. It comes from articles written by J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, and like I said before, it captures a lot of imagination because people always ask the question, oh, what house would I be in if I was in this universe?
Gryffindor.
Slytherin! I'm the best house. Correct me.
The most evil house.
Change my mind.
Okay, well, step one.
Anyway, yeah, so we already discussed the Harry Potter franchise, which is, like, huge, but what really constitutes a good franchise? Like, well, good.
I feel like the best franchises will be me, of course. But the best franchise, I feel like, are the ones that have that community. Because, you know, it doesn't matter how many different episodes or parts you have in your story if no one's watching it.
Oh yeah, the communities make and break these kind of series. Like, for instance, there's like a huge like cult following around like the Lord of the Rings series.
Don't forget about Pixar.
Yeah,
Pixar in itself might as well be its own thing, because you know the Pixar theory where every Pixar movie is connected.
Yeah, there's tons of different like theories, and I personally like the one where the witch from Brave is actually
that's right.
Is it for the little girl from Monster Inc. grown up?
No, she's not Boo. She's not Boo. I know what you're talking about. She's someone grown up, but I forget who it was.
She's one of the other Pixar characters. Tell us in the comments because I'm blanking on it.
Or we could Google it, but okay.
Like we Google during these. But anyway, yeah, just like the communities just create and they expand like with those theories.
And they don't even have to be right. They're interesting ways to think about stuff. Like there's a Harry Potter one where people were guessing that Fawkes was Dumbledore's Horcrux.
Oh yeah.
Or a Horcrux that Dumbledore made. And, you know, J.K. Rowling was like, oh dear God, why would people think this? But it's still an interesting thing to think about.
I think some of the greatest franchises are the ones that are still continuing. Because we live in a generation where a lot of the franchises are kind of like either dwindling or like
very
stopped.
few are even completely stopped.
There's like at least I think there are 3 franchises that I can name off the top of my head that like everybody's heard of, and then the rest are kind of like niche to their own specific communities, and that's the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the DC
/ X-Men, because they should be MCU, but they aren't. It's weird.
The DCEU and the attempts that they're making, people know about it.
Yeah,
and
not for good reasons, but they know about it.
Not for good reasons, but it's there. And I should say 4 Star Wars, of course, because
what's Star Wars?
Never heard of it. Because everybody has Star Wars, and then the 4th one, oh God, I'm blanking.
Harry Potter?
Nah, not Harry Potter. It's what? Yeah, God, it's one that's on. Oh no, Game of Thrones.
No,
that's what I was thinking. Game of Thrones is like what you just said. A lot of people are making theories for stuff that hasn't come out yet. Well, that next season.
The interesting thing is too, like that is an adaptation of the books technically, but haven't they passed the books now in the show?
Yes, they have. I think they passed the books starting on the 7th season. Like after they got past season 6, I think they were done. Correct me if I'm wrong. It might have been season 6 doing that.
And I mean, even then, it's like even when they were still with the books, they weren't following it perfectly. They were putting in their own stuff and they were changing stuff here and there. So you couldn't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole first season, but I have read the first book, and I think that all the information in there, even if they did add or subtract a few things, would still coincide.
Well, of course, the main events are still there, but it's like, you know, the person who kills someone in a battle might be this person instead of someone else, or vice versa.
That's true. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that you can do with a franchise, with expanding it, creating it into your own scene, imagining yourself in it, that kind of creativity and mindset.
I mean, even with some franchises now, it's like we see them and we're like, we think they're dying out, but then more stuff keeps coming out for them, like the Harry Potter stuff with Fantastic Beasts. Lord of the Rings now has a show that's being produced.
Yeah, isn't that by Amazon?
I think it's by Amazon.
Yeah,
I saw this really funny tweet, actually. I'll put it here somewhere, where they were like, it was basically like a caption of you know, Amazon's like confirmed for committed for 5 seasons of this Lord of the Rings show, and Peter Dinklage is just like needed a dwarf. I would love to see Peter Dinklage in Lord of the Rings. Like,
hey, it's not. He's got that medieval sassy.
Then we got that moment when they do a Lord of the Rings Game of Thrones crossover.
Hey, there you go. But anyway, yeah, is Peter Jackson directing that?
I don't even know.
I don't know.
He didn't. Did he direct all the Hobbit movies?
If I remember correctly, Star Trek Discovery was also through Amazon.
Star Trek is also, that's the other one that's not dying anytime soon, because just people keep wanting to bring it back. Jesus.
Let's talk about Star Trek a little bit. Star Trek was on a huge hiatus.
You mean Star Wars? Oh. Yes, I mean, well, it's true with Star Wars too. It was gone from the movie scene for a long time.
Yeah. But the thing with Star Wars is that it was always and
They were
Star Trek,
always the shows.
they were always expanding.
Well,
They
even
were always-
when they were coming out in their main medium, Star Wars the movies and Star Trek the TV shows, they were still having things coming out. Like Star Trek had some of their movies come out during that time. Star Wars had their TV shows. Star Trek also had their MMO game come out.
That's true.
Which I'll admit I've played. I love the space combat.
You know what game
Story is
you know
dumb.
what game I want to try though? One
What?
day I want to try that Star Trek VR where you're the captain.
Oh,
and
I remember that. You know what?
everybody
I'd play that
doing
too.
different roles. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Hey, if someone wants to send us a couple VR headsets,
Hey, we know people. We might be.
this
able
is
to.
true.
But anyway, the Star Trek series, yeah, it was built. The great thing about the Star Trek debate is that they're so different because Star Trek was built off of the TV shows, whereas Star Wars was
came
built
off the
off the
movies.
movies. And
And both have highs and lows. It's like, obviously, it's another problem with, not problem, but just like something that's inherent with franchises. You're going to have your highs and your lows.
because even the Star Trek community itself, even though we said communities are like the biggest part of a franchise, are like split between the people who like the Next Generation and the people who like the '60s series.
I mean,
with,
even
William
Star Wars
Shatner.
is split in that sense. There are people who love the Disney stuff and people who can't stand it.
Yeah, that's a recent controversy to be
Or
honest.
the prequels, too, even. But that's a little bit more on
Yeah,
the side of hating
the prequels are more universal than usual, and it's usually a younger audience.
And it's
who
mostly
likes
just
them.
it's mostly just Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones that get most of the hate, too.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith is usually.
I actually
regarded
kind
as
of
the
like
best
that one, but I've said
Yeah,
that
I
before.
like Revenge of the Sith a lot. General Grievous.
Go with the chosen one!
Hey, we're not throwing in memes just yet.
But I have the high ground.
God damn it. Anyway, there are tons of different things that you can do with adaptations for these sort of things.
Right.
Because obviously the Star Trek movies were adapted from the show. But what happens when you try and adapt, like, say, a book into, like, a franchise?
And this is where the argument of the book was better always comes in. It's like, and I hate when those arguments are used for the whatever was better when it's an adaptation because it's not supposed to be better or worse. It's supposed to be different.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to copy paste the exact story because then people who have read the book have no reason to watch it.
They're
People
only,
who have
like,
played the game have no reason to watch
I've
it.
only had 2 instances where people, like, prefer the movies or TV show or whatever digital medium that's put out instead of the books, and that's like with Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and or Harry Potter. But Harry Potter's written.
Harry Potter's pretty split, too, on that
Harry
front.
Potter's really split. But I know that the Lord of the Rings has a lot of sections because it was J.R.R. Tolkien and
He
that
does.
time
He does
period,
have like I think
very
it's the first
descriptive.
chapter of the Hobbit. I think it was either the Hobbit or Fellowship,
Mm-hmm.
where he basically spends the first chapter or two talking about life as a Hobbit.
I think that was
I think it was Hobbit.
yeah, it was Hobbit because he wrote that one
Yeah,
first.
but it's like obviously that's not making it into a movie, and no one wants to see that in a
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah,
People
that's
want the
fine.
action. People want the story to start.
That's fine, and that's just that writing at the time.
Right, and well, obviously when he was writing that, he needed to do that so people knew what was going on.
That's true. It's just one of those things where a lot of people forget to separate the two mediums.
Yeah,
And that can also be translated into comic book movies, to be perfectly honest.
right.
You can be like, oh, they didn't adapt the story 100% flawlessly and perfectly, and to be honest, they can't.
That's thankfully something that we don't really see with Marvel or X-Men or anything like that right now.
Marvel likes to have their movies inspired by like a certain
Of
comic
course.
series, or take
Like,
inspirations.
Pretty much all of the stories that we've seen through MCU so far have been at least close to what happened in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
So, and honestly, thankfully they aren't exactly. Otherwise, we'd be like, well, we know what's going to happen.
Yeah, they like kept the origin stories the same. They kept like setups, character.
Well, it's kind of hard to
development.
change some of the origin stories. Like Uncle Ben has to die.
Uncle Ben will always die.
Like Batman's parents. I know it's DC, not Marvel, but Batman's parents will always die.
Yep.
Krypton will always explode.
And that's why when you have a movie like, you have those movies like Green Lantern and the first Daredevil movie that are like, they had the interpretations, but they didn't get the characters right. And that's when that kind of thing is
That's
justified.
what sucks with origin movies, too.
That's when that sort of thing is justified for like being like, yeah, you didn't really take what the character is supposed to be about. You said it's inspired by this certain piece of literature, but you didn't follow through with that. You know?
And that's another thing that kind of leads into just that type of setting where if you have a character that's introduced like that and people don't like the movie, then they're not going to go see a sequel. But that's when you get like these group movies like the Avengers, like Justice League, where it's like we're putting them all together.
You know what? You know what book series that turned into a movie desperately tried to be a franchise?
I can think of a few.
Oh, I'm thinking of Percy Jackson.
Okay, well, yeah.
Percy Jackson.
I only read the first book of that too, and I loved
The
it,
Percy
too.
Jackson books are some of my most nostalgic pieces of literature. Like,
Did not go well.
it did not go well.
Well,
in movie
you know
form,
what I
and
think the
that
biggest
made
problem
me
with
angry.
those movies was? They tried to make them Harry Potter movies.
They did. They tried. Well, the thing is, they tried to throw in a bunch of stuff, like to make it more recognizable, I guess.
Well, it's a problem that kind of started because of Harry Potter, where it's like a lot of the movies that came out with a similar cast of main characters, you know, like the mid-teens, like people who have like these strange powers or like are forced into leadership positions.
Yeah.
Like your Hunger Games, your Percy Jacksons, even Twilight to some extent. They all tried to follow the model, but everyone had seen it.
The Maze Runner series that's going on right now in movie form is the same way.
Yeah.
It's taking way too many liberties with its source material, and it's frankly not
Right.
It's got some alright acting, but just the story doesn't.
Well, I can think of a couple
sense.
others that really tried to be franchises, but then when the first movie or the first couple movies just bombed, like they gave up on it.
Yeah.
Like stuff like Aragon or whatever.
Aragon,
The
yeah.
Dragon book. I almost said Aragorn. That's Lord of the Rings.
To be honest, that movie, I watched it, and it wasn't horrible.
I mean,
it took some
none
liberties,
of these movies
but
are
it wasn't
entirely bad, but it's like, you know, with these famous books,
with
they're
these
gonna
big fan bases.
they're going to try and they're going to spend a lot on the movies, and if it doesn't make enough back, they're not going to make another one.
You're right.
Like,
yeah.
It's a hard thing to do, and that's why it's weird. I can't think of many movie franchises that started as movies and then became other things. Like
Besides Star Wars, it's like
literally it's just Star Wars. That's all I
it's
can
pretty
think of.
much just Star Wars. It's because the movie medium is hard to like come up with creative concepts.
Well, it's also because movies as a whole have to be one-offs when they start. Because you can't guarantee a sequel. TV shows, you can have multiple storylines. Books, it's not that hard to write another one.
Yeah, you can have branching character arcs, but it's hard to make multiple branching arcs in a 2.5 hour span.
Right. And I mean, it's one of the things too, like you've got characters that have to die off at some point. Like, we're not going to get into the whole thing with Infinity War, but someone's going to die. Multiple people are going to die. We know it's going to happen.
Yep.
And that's because you can only have the same version of a character so often before people start to be like, next.
And it's also bad when you take a franchise that is very beloved and then you take it to a more popular medium and you just butcher it.
Oh yeah. That's like how much I want to see a Halo movie. I'm worried.
Yeah. Like I can shout all the live long day about Transformers and how like it took a great nostalgic cartoon series and butchered it in movie form. Though I do like it's a guilty pleasure movie. The first three,
You mean-
then the fourth and
You
fifth
mean the
ones
movie
are
of
just
boobs and
unwatchable.
explosions, boobs and bangs?
Hey, people like the Fast.
That's gonna
and
be the
Furious.
subtitle of the next one.
People like Fast and Furious.
It's true.
But that's
So that one's more honest about its marketing.
That one's very honest. If
It's like, we
honest
know what
about-
you're here to see.
If they're honest about that kind of crap, then I don't care.
Yeah, Transformers, they try and, in all the trailers, they're like, here's this grand conquest of like all this stuff, and we're just like, we know what's gonna
I
happen.
mean, the first one had some suspense to it, but
And that's because it was the first one.
and then the third one had a lot of crap to it. Though
Oh, yeah. Well, tried, yeah.
it tried, but then again, it wasn't. Plot.
You know what also, the other one that actually kind of died as far as its movie production goes is Narnia.
Yeah.
Like, they did the first three. Like, I completely forgot that the second one was, I even forget half.
I forgot that there were 7 books in that franchise.
There are 7 books. There are 3 movies that have come out. I forgot about the third one. The only ones I remembered were Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian.
It's a shame too because the Narnia series always had amazing visuals, in my opinion.
They did, but it's just like, and honestly, I think their first mistake was starting with the order that the books came out and not chronologically. But I don't think anyone was going to remember that first book chronologically.
Yeah.
I don't even remember its name. Like,
Well, yeah, there was a first book where it was like the Keeper of the Mansion.
oh no, it was the witches or the wizards something. Wizards
The
Nephew.
Wizard's Nephew.
And that was like the 6th book he wrote, but it was the first one chronologically. So it's like no one remembered it.
Yeah. That definitely puts damage.
Like honestly, they're
doesn't take
making-
away from the first movie though. First
They're
movie,
making whatever it's called, like the Silver Chair, right now.
Are they?
I think they are. Okay, I looked this up earlier, and it was like it had an IMDb listing, but it didn't have a release date. So I'm just like, is this in the making?
It's probably in development hell.
Probably, honestly, because it's like it's been a while since the last one.
Silver Chair. That sounds like one of the.
It's the fourth one.
The fourth one. Yeah.
It's the 4th one he wrote. But I feel like after that they're gonna skip Horse and His Boy, and as well as they might do Wizard's Nephew, but they'll probably skip that and just go to Last Battle.
Well, yeah, I mean,
because
there's a lot of lore for that
of
series.
course, and they want to wrap it up. They want to be done with it.
Yeah, they
probably
do.
at this point, considering it's not done very well.
Nah, it hasn't been.
And
Just the tone of it.
yeah, it's just I don't know what exactly it was. Like I can't pinpoint one specific thing, but it just has not worked.
Yeah, that would take a rewatch.
Yeah. I also just realized we're both wearing the same type of gray. Oops.
Well, there you go.
It's our
I
it's
got
our uniform.
gray and red, and
I've got gray and red.
but with blue, so it's different.
He's not wrong.
I
But-
mean, yeah, you know.
And going back to adaptations, that's another thing. Narnia was an adaptation, and it's hard because you gotta get to a point where you can't directly copy it as much as fans of the book would like it to happen that way. Then people who have read it almost have no point of seeing it.
Yeah,
other
you
than
wanna-
to see it on the screen.
In my opinion, you want to strike that balance between presenting information to people who've never understood this medium before and providing enough references and Easter eggs and stuff so that people who have understood the series can appreciate it.
Well, that's a problem with exposition that just kind of comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to explain enough so that new people will understand it, but not spend your whole time just summarizing the entire story beforehand. Like Halo 5 had this problem because they introduced a lot of characters that, for the most part, had either not been seen for a while, like Buck hadn't been seen since ODST. I guess Reach technically, but ODST was after Reach.
And ODST was...
You've got Blue Team that makes their first appearance in a game, and they basically wrote them like everyone would know them already from all the comics and the books, which there are people that only play the games.
They forgot that casuals buy their game.
And that's it.
Yeah, and that's... yeah. They forget that they need to market a story for that 80% who have never played another Halo game, or because that's also works for younger audiences
and that
who may have just not been around for the other.
Honestly,
Halo
the biggest mistake was not just that they introduced all these characters out of nowhere. And honestly, kind of tried to have like 5 main characters, which didn't work. But they also did not show Blue Team. They didn't give a reason for Blue Team being there. Like, people know why they're there. They know why they're still alive if they've read the books or the comics or just have Googled it.
Yeah, but they needed to do all that lore research to even figure that out.
They should have, honestly, if I'd been helping with that story, I would have said our first cinematic or two needs to show the reuniting of Chief and Blue Team and have some type of explanation of where they've been.
Yeah, like there could have been at the beginning of Halo 4, there was a big expositional part at the beginning that had beautiful cutscenes that explained the situation.
Yep.
For people who hadn't come back, because there was a kind of big hiatus between Halo 3 and 4.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Like, when you have a break like that, you kind of have to wonder, you have to assume that they're going to have a lot of new people that are just like, oh, this game is famous, or this series is famous. I'm going to play the new one. But you're going to have to catch them up.
Or Halo Reach. It had a great intro.
Halo Reach was also very independent of story. Or not, I'm saying it had a story, but it's like, it was independent of the rest of the story. It was before Halo CE, but there was nothing leading up to it.
And that brings us into spin-offs. Spin-offs from a franchise can sometimes be hit or miss, in my opinion.
Well, there's like that one-off story, and this more applies to franchises that have like that main timeline with one character, like a Halo game, like your kind of Lord of the Rings, not really, like a James Bond type of something, like and other stuff like that. It's when you divert from that main character and its storyline. When you have, or Harry Potter as well, like Fantastic Beasts is a spinoff. Cursed Child is horrible.
I haven't read it, so I wouldn't know.
It doesn't work. The time travel thing is dumb, but it's Star Wars is kind of like this too.
Well, yeah, Star Wars has mediums like the Old Republic medium.
KOTOR.
Knights of the Old Republic, the Old Republic MMO, all stuff that expands...
Same storyline, technically.
Yeah. Explains the entirety of that kind of a universe for that time by being independent of the
And
main
honestly, that's
continuity.
one of the things I loved about the old Star Wars EU, curse you Disney, where they took... Like, it was just something where if I wanted to and I was curious about something like the really old Star Wars history, because I love history in general, both real life and fake. Fiction, I guess. Fake sounds funnier. I'm going with it. But it's like, I could just look it up on a wiki and be like, how did this start? How did this come to be? Because you can see, like, the chain of events leading up to things.
Yeah, and it's another one of those things, like, me coming from a fighting game background with Mortal Kombat, having a lot...
No.
Mortal Kombat has a lot of extensive lore behind each of its characters and realms and worlds and gods.
And a really weird movie.
So that a player can go through and complete the arcade mode for a certain character to unlock more of that character's personal story.
Right.
So you're unlocking your own lore with it within the own continuity, which is technically more of a spin-off on
You know what would be interesting, actually, now that I'm thinking about it?
What?
A Halo game, well, where where you are almost forced to play the multiplayer. And by that I mean like kind of like how you said with the arcade mode. You have to play a certain amount of matches in multiplayer or something like that to unlock campaign missions.
That's a little restrictive, but there might be a game like that in the future.
Okay, I guess that would fit better with Overwatch, but
I mean, Overwatch is good too.
what if, because it's like then you could unlock story missions, kind of like Retribution.
Would you consider Overwatch a franchise by this point?
Yes and no. I mean, they have their story elements, but they're all based around the game.
They have the Overwatch League. They have like a professional scene for it. It's came out in 2015 and it's still strong here in 2018.
You know why I might not consider it a franchise, although it certainly has a strong case for being one. It's that it's all of its expanded stuff, be it animated shorts or comics or whatever, all feel like supplemental material for the game and not so much as independent stuff.
I mean, that's fair. There's not as they do have their own comic series that runs.
That's the thing. It's a series.
It is a series. It's building to become one in the near future.
Okay, well, you know what it actually is?
Do you think a franchise needs multiple titles to consider itself a franchise?
I think it needs to have multiple stories that have series.
It needs to be built upon itself.
Basically, because it's like Overwatch, although it does have the story missions like Retribution, it doesn't have story within the game that's independent of the comics.
That's It doesn't really build upon anything. Like if it had a game that's solely purely focused on the
if Overwatch had a campaign mode, then I would probably call it a franchise.
You know what? Another Blizzard game that's a really good franchise.
WoW.
Yes, but also Diablo.
Yeah.
Diablo and WoW, because World of Warcraft has all the multiple expansions that build.
Has a movie now too.
And has a movie which builds upon its own lore in its own way. I never saw it, so
it did not get. It was not very well received.
That movie was for fans. It's the same problem.
That was literal fan service. Yeah.
Same problem as Halo 5.
And both of them have like this very, very deep lore too, and that's one of the things that just comes with being a franchise. Like you look at Star Trek, you can go back, and honestly, I love stuff like Star Trek where it's like this is connected to our reality. Harry Potter has the same thing where it's like it's Halo as well.
Yeah,
where it's like this is our reality either in the future or in the shadows, as far as Harry Potter is concerned. Where it's like you can be like it could be real in some weird like alternate universe of this.
There's realism drawn into it.
Yeah,
it makes the characters human and relatable like they are in this time and world, and it makes it feel grounded within a reasonable universe.
It's something that makes Lord of the Rings and Star Wars special because they aren't connected to our reality in any way.
No, they make you dream,
but they're like they still work. Like Marvel, X-Men, DC, they all are connected to our reality in some way, shape, or form. James Bond is as well.
Yeah, the James Bond franchise, man. Woo!
And that. Another one we forgot actually.
You can only die twice.
Another one we forgot about actually is Doctor Who.
Doctor Who franchise. That has like I've said before, ton of lore with that stuff. Ton of fan theories.
It does lead into all this kind of reboot stuff because I mean you got every single every different Doctor they've done, every different Bond that they've done.
Daniel Craig.
It connects to the superhero stuff too. You got every different Spider-Man, every different Batman, every different Superman, and we're getting to the point where we're probably going to see multiple Iron Mans later on.
We're definitely going to see multiple Wolverines now that Hugh Jackman is hung up
the claws.
Yeah, we've seen multiple Professor X with James McAvoy in place of Patrick Stewart.
Let's be real, Patrick Stewart will always be the most memorable one, though.
He will be, but McAvoy's done an alright job too. And Fassbender in place of Ian McKellen, same deal. I'm gonna
miss Ian McKellen. Ian McKellen was so good. And I mean, you look at it with Dumbledore too. Obviously, the first Dumbledore died after the second movie, and then they had the new guy come in.
Didn't they delay the release date of the sixth movie because of
it was probably
Dumbledore for that passing away?
It was probably the third movie,
something like that.
But and then now you've got in Fantastic Beasts 2, I think it's like Crimes of Grindelwald or something like that.
Yes,
they're going to have a young Dumbledore.
That's right.
Well, younger. He's still like in his, I think, 30s or 40s, but
isn't Grindelwald being played by Johnny Depp?
Yeah.
Nice.
Which, I mean, people were like, why? But he looks good.
Controversial statement. I like Johnny Depp. I just remember him as Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, his characters have a lot of depth.
Also good movie that he's in, Rango. Like Rango. Rango may be one of my favorite animated movies.
You know what actually could be considered a franchise, although not really?
What?
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I mean, it's got...
Since we're talking about Johnny Depp.
Wasn't Gene Wilder...
Gene Wilder was the original, and then now there's a musical for it, which why?
It's better than
I guess.
Wiz.
I mean, it was kind of a musical technically, but I mean, you've also got the Wizard of Oz. Like,
Yeah, Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz is kind of more like a
Classic.
universe as opposed to like a franchise because there aren't.
Well,
a
didn't
ton
they
of
make the
sequels.
movie Oz the Great and Powerful?
They did make Oz the Great and Powerful, and they also have.
Wicked.
I mean, Wicked is its own
Wicked
thing.
the musical.
Wicked, I'm surprised hasn't been made into a movie, although you could kind of argue that Oz the Great and Powerful was kind of a movie of Wicked.
Fair enough.
That just seems like the next logical step, and I wouldn't be shocked if they end up doing it at some point, because movie musicals are still a thing.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, hell, you had what was it, Greatest Showman that just came out?
Yeah, that one was
Which
with Hugh
keeps
Jackman.
popping up on my fucking Pandora. I'm like, no!
I have not seen
I
Greatest
haven't
Showman.
either, and I
haven't meant to.
I might. The big thing for me is I'm trying to not listen to the songs.
Would you
until I see it.
consider Les Miserables like some
franchise?
sort of a franchise? Because it's got a play, it's got a movie, it's got multiple sources of medium,
I'd argue that it's more something that's been adapted a lot.
multiple adaptations and inspirations, though not necessarily. a
But they're all
franchise.
the exact same story for the most part.
Okay. Makes
Like,
sense.
And this is why a franchise is so hard to define. Like, Les Miserables is just a story that's been told in multiple mediums and multiple times in multiple mediums, even in certain cases. Whereas stuff like Halo is something with multiple independent stories. Lord of the Rings has multiple little stories within a whole universe.
Yep. That's the thing I sometimes get bothered with adaptations, because it takes away sometimes from creativity when you're trying to make a franchise.
It's like you can only do so much with a Les Mis adaptation. You can't make Les Mis 2.
No, you can't,
That's
because
mostly
there's no
most
such
people
thing
are
to
dead
it.
by the end of it.
True. Same with Hamlet.
Yeah. Hamlet 2. Oh, wait. We're out of cast members.
So, insert Shakespearean play here, too. Can't
Literally. Romeo and Juliet, the corpses.
happen.
And it's like...
That'd more like be solved in 3 lines of epilogue dialogue.
Well, I mean, that's basically how it ends.
Yeah, fair enough.
It does bring us back to one issue that we talked about that comes up with these is what is canon. Because we just talked about Lord of the Rings. Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor are both not technically canon, but they're great stories
Yeah.
for within Lord of the Rings. They
Wait.
explore the universe.
The expanded universe. Star Wars. It's not
Do
canon.
not get me started.
It's not canon anymore.
It should be!
Definitely should be.
Literally, okay.
Great stories.
I feel like I'm not sure if I've said it on this before, but if I had been
probably
Disney,
have.
if I had been Disney, and obviously I can understand wanting to do your own thing and wanting to be like, we're not going to follow whatever had been written already in books and stuff for the post episode 6. But unless they want to make movies pre episode 1, leave that alone. Like, you can just say, whatever happened after episode 6, we might take into consideration to write. But as far as we're concerned, it's not going to be canon. We're going to write our own stuff. I'd be like, that's fine. Leave the stuff you're not going to worry about alone.
Yeah, let it stand on its own, you know?
Exactly. It's like, what does Darth Revan's existence, what does Darth Krait's... No, Darth Krayt was later. But what does Darth Treya's existence have to do with episodes 7, 8, 9?
To their credit, though, they have been starting to reintegrate
They are putting it back in, yeah, but it's...
slowly.
At some point, they have to be like, well, we basically just did the story again. Can the old one be canon again?
Yeah. You know what? The only way I'll be fine with their past transgressions of putting that extended universe dead is if the next trilogy that is rumored to happen is Old Republic.
Oh my god. If they do a Revan trilogy, I will actually be excited.
Yeah. Like, that would be great.
I don't know if
Hopefully they'll find
I don't know
a
if they'd
good
be able to
director.
fit. I don't know if they'd be able to fit Revan's story into a trilogy.
Yeah, they have, though. That's fine.
Like, Revan's story is a hard one to fit into a trilogy, though.
Yeah, but the Game of Thrones people are directing these movies.
Oh no, I'm not saying it would be bad. I'm just saying they might have to do 6 movies.
Hey,
And
I'm fine with that.
I'd be okay with it. They could do a kind of like early Revan trilogy and a later Revan trilogy.
What if they did the story of Knights of the Old Republic in, like, the middle? That'd be crazy.
I feel like you almost have to start in the Mandalorian Wars.
Could be a reason for that. Build new characters. Show us new faces that we haven't
Well, because
seen.
that's when Revan first appears.
I know,
in the
but
story.
like, show us some new faces.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
or at least characters that have not been seen in a movie.
Use that creativity with the lore that you already have.
And it's like you've got so many great conflicts in the Star Wars Star Wars Legends. It's like there are so many great conflicts that could be drawn from for these. Like you got the Great Hyperspace War, I think it was like not the 100 Years War, that was something else. The Great Hyperspace War, I said that.
You said that. Mandalorian.
Mandalorian Wars, the Jedi Civil War.
Yeah.
The Great Jedi Purge, the first one.
Definitely all sources.
Which is, I think, KOTOR 2. That or it's the second Great Jedi Purge.
It's something.
There's a lot of Jedi Purges.
Tragedy of Darth Nihilus, maybe?
Darth Nihilus, Darth Bane.
Darth Bane, Rule of Two. Sith standalone movie? I'm down.
Honestly, I'd be okay with that.
I'd be down.
I would watch a Darth Bane movie.
Yeah.
You've also got like the old, like the first.
Can we just have a
Jedi
movie
Civil
titled
War.
"The Tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise"?
It's just.
It's not a story the Jedi would tell.
No, you know all it is. It's just. Was it Ian? No, that's Ian McDermott.
Yes.
I knew it was Mick something. It's just Ian McDermott just telling the story as Darth Sidious. Honestly, I would pay to watch that.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard the story of Darth Plagueis?
Not a story the Jedi would tell you. But
in my eyes, the Jedi are evil. This is just turned into Star Wars memes now.
But now that we're talking about possible franchises getting formed, sometimes it's hard to tell when a franchise is actually forming. It could be forming right under our nose, but we don't even know it.
I feel like I'd smell it.
You'd smell it beforehand.
But it's like, and it's not even so much that a franchise gets formed, it's just that something big happens or comes out.
A lot of times we can feel it like on the horizon, in my opinion. Like
Right.
you can be like, man, this was a great movie that had a lot of stuff that was unanswered. It's gonna build on
It usually doesn't go from just one release and then to franchise though. It usually goes one release, then they go to a sequel, then they go to a trilogy, then it becomes.
Oh, you know what?
That.
You know what one's been building under our feet without us even realizing it?
What?
John Wick.
That's true.
John Wick has a TV show now based
Yeah.
on the assassin organization Hotel.
You know
that
what's
has,
also
like,
been
the
building?
really, really strict rules.
You know what's
That's
also been
awesome.
building that we didn't think about? Assassin's Creed.
Yes, Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed had its game series, and now they've got the movie that came out.
To mixed reviews.
I mean, I didn't say they were good. I just said it came out.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if they did a show.
No, I wouldn't be either.
Hell, it'd probably run better than the movie because.
Pick a time period.
Yeah,
There you
literally.
go.
Just be like, I feel like Ottoman Empire would be good for this one. I don't know. Or like ancient China. They haven't gone there yet.
They haven't gone to feudal Japan either. Even though that's the obvious
Anything
place.
in Asia would be fun, I think.
Did you hear that there was a rumor that the Ubisoft team was like maybe going to put them in space for like future time?
I question
some
how you're
point-
going to do that. You're going to have to basically. I mean, I know that Desmond is gone, or is not a main figure in the story anymore.
No.
But you're going to have to like go pretty post Desmond for this to work.
I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game since Black Flag, so
The last one I
would
played
not
was
know.
3, so I mean.
I would not know. I have seen footage for Origins though. Origins was good.
Origins was. The Origins
I
looked
enjoyed
good.
it. I enjoyed playing a little bit of Origins.
Oranges.
Oranges. My brother played Origins.
Assassin's Creed Orange. Orange is the new assassin. I don't know.
There you go.
I don't even know. But yeah, it's interesting because you usually need like some type of way to go after the first like iteration of it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but think about it. If you have a good world with developed characters,
Well, that's the thing though.
you just start out of nowhere.
You need developed characters. Like you can't have a story. Say it's a movie that comes out first.
Multiple.
You can't have the first movie just be like main character and their little companions, story arc wrapped up, done. That doesn't work. There's nothing to build off of that.
This is why I want more Dirty Harry movies. I just want more of that.
Well, I mean, it's like that's why a lot of the horror movie franchises came out and work.
Yeah.
You've got like this mystery, these unanswered questions behind like Freddy Krueger and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
the origin story behind Freddy or Jason or like
Exactly.
Yeah, like why Jason's supernatural.
Because he
why-
is. That's why.
How did Freddy become this dream demon? Like
Dreamin'.
Dreaming. Sometimes they take liberties with these kind of stories, but
Well, of course, but it works in the end. It's something to watch.
yeah, it's something to watch. It's better plots than some movies.
And there's only so much you can do, but it doesn't even necessarily need to be done this way in a spin-off, but side characters or side main characters are very important when it comes to building a
Oh,
franchise.
you know what could have been a franchise though, but hasn't
Me?
been expanded upon yet? No, you already are.
Oh yeah.
Inception. never
true.
got like any version of sequel or other media, but it left a lot of unanswered questions.
You know what's
about
pretty
the
close
structures of
to being a
dreams.
franchise if they really want to do like spin-off stories or something, or like original stories in a game?
Yeah, tell me.
Matrix.
Matrix. Didn't they make like a ton of TV animated shorts or something like
I'm
that?
not sure
in
about
relation to
TV
them?
like shows or shorts, but I know they did try a couple games, but they're basically just the movie.
I think
adapted.
Into the Matrix was like a series of I think there was
Sounds
some
right.
Japanese.
It might have been an anime.
Yeah, there was some anime to it, but I think it was just a ton of different developers making like these mini movies that were related to the lore of the Matrix world.
Yeah,
And some of them were like really, really good because they would be like this short, just about a typical runner.
Yeah, and I
running
mean,
from an agent.
it doesn't have to be like a very famous franchise to be a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be a franchise.
Yeah, it could be something already established.
And I mean, once again, you get into the debate of what is canon, because
Yeah.
you know, I doubt the original makers of the Matrix would consider some of these shorts canon.
Mm-hmm.
And there's ways around it too. Like obviously, you can beat Disney and just say it's not.
Just say,
I will get you for this.
just buy everything.
Or you could just be like, you could take what Marvel's approach has been and just be like, everything's canon. It's just in a different universe. It's
go.
like
Multiverse theory.
it's one of the most convoluted like ways to explain like plot holes in your stories or contradictions, but it works.
You mean lazy ways to explain?
You know what though? It works.
It does work,
and
that's
it's probably the easiest way to reboot stuff too.
you know what's the most conflicting thing in the Marvel universe right now, of whether it's in the universe or not?
Everything.
Especially with, at the time of this video recording, the day previous, the Venom trailer came out.
Oh yeah.
I'm very excited for that movie.
But Venom.
I like Venom a lot. He might be my favorite fictional character. Period.
No,
You
one
heard it
close
here.
to mine.
You
but-
heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first, folks.
Okay.
Anyway, Venom may or may not be in the Marvel universe. The thing is, Kevin Feige, the main director for most of the
Right.
Marvel movies, has not clarified that fact. There are rumors that Tom Holland, the Spider-Man, will be in the movie as a cameo, but they're setting up the movie as in association with Marvel, so maybe in a different universe or a different time.
Well, you also have the X-Men movies that are Marvel, but they aren't in the MCU.
Yeah, they're based on Marvel characters, but they're not in the MCU at all. They're going to have to do a lot of recasting now that Disney owns Fox and therefore the X-Men.
Honestly, it would be interesting to see if Disney starts combining some of their franchises together in some way, shape, or form.
Maybe.
But and it's we were talking about this before, where after Infinity War, well, Infinity Gauntlet, technically, whatever comes after, they're probably going to reboot the Avengers in some way, shape, or form, and I wouldn't be shocked if they use that opportunity to be like, the X-Men are now in it. Like, the X-Men are now canon to
There'll
this.
be a couple setup movies before that.
Oh,
I know
of
in
course.
2020 they have a Fantastic Four movie scheduled.
Hopefully it's better than the others.
Well, this one's actually directed by Marvel.
I know, but you get my
not
point.
by Sony, not by Fox.
We know how the
Marvel.
other iterations of this have gone.
I think they'll get it right.
Yeah.
I think they'll do fine.
No, they're going to add another one. They're going
I
to call
want
it the
Victor Von
Fantastic
Doom
Four.
in his real form, not those other. Well, I mean, the first one and the first ones was kind of all right.
Yeah.
But these need to be correct because Doom is
You're just going to be sitting there in the audience and be like, you're doing it wrong.
That's what I'm going to do for the Venom movie if they're doing it wrong. They're doing it wrong. I'm
There will be
screaming.
angrily worded letters sent
There will be boycotts.
to Marvel.
Nah, it's all right. It'd be to Sony.
You know, boycott Infinity War.
Nah, never boycott Infinity War. It's too good of a movie.
You
to
just,
pass
you know,
up.
you'll boycott Infinity Gauntlet if Venom is bad.
Fair enough. But yeah, themes definitely hold a factor to whether you can
of
mesh
course.
those kind of things.
And it's
Because
also-
the X-Men theme has always been like they're outcasts from society,
Well,
whereas the Avengers are more accepted that way.
And it's funny, too, because when you think about it, the X-Men themes are very similar to the Incredibles themes.
Yeah.
And that's another Disney
What do you
property.
think the Incredibles get inspiration from, buddy?
Yeah. The X-Credibles.
Incredibles 2 looks nice.
Yeah.
By the way.
It'll be interesting. It'll be funny, though, when you see, like, I feel like they should have, like, 21 and up screenings of it, so they could just be like, you don't have to deal with the kids that are going to be going to see it, because it's a kids' movie, technically.
Yeah.
But you got all the people going to see it for nostalgia.
All I want is Samuel L. Jackson, Frozone, to just ask where his super suit is again.
Where is my super suit?
Woman, where's my super suit?
Well, you saw in the trailer they had something like that.
Yeah, something like that. She was still being sassy.
They could not put that in.
Yeah. It's become too big of a meme.
A lot of Disney stuff has become a meme.
I mean, you're right.
You meme, I'm right.
You meme? Yeah. There it is. We're so clever.
I mean, yeah, it's obviously not just thieves that can make people make connections between stuff. Obviously, you've got the whole, it was released by the same person, so maybe they're connected, Pixar.
Yeah.
And even Nintendo.
Yeah, like, Nintendo.
You've got a lot of their Mario characters that are like, they're all together.
They're all the Mario characters. Waluigi, Mario, Birdo.
I mean,
Daisy.
you've got Luigi's Mansion, which is Luigi.
Luigi. Boo. King Boo.
Yeah, and it's like
there.
Mario's not in it, but still Mario Universe.
Yeah. And I mean, one could argue that they like all share a universe because they all show up in like the Smash Brothers series.
You've also got Donkey Kong in the first Mario game, or was it just called Donkey Kong?
It was just called Donkey.
Yeah, you've got Mario in the first Donkey Kong game, but Donkey Kong has its own games where you don't even see any other Mario character.
And you have the Donkey Kong Country series with that.
You've got Diddy Kong in there. You got, I think, like Tiny, Lanky, Cranky Kong is also a character.
Cranky Kong, Funky Kong.
Which really just makes them sound like Disney dwarfs.
Gotta love Funky Kong. Funky Kong, man.
Oh, God.
Gotta love Funky Kong.
I've only played Donkey Kong 64, but God, is it annoying at times. I hate collectathons.
It's a frustrating game
Or I have a love-hate relationship with collectathons. They're fun, so their puzzles are enjoyable, but then when you got one thing you gotta collect with the
one might even
character.
consider those old Atari games somewhat of a franchise.
They're a franchise in the sense that they're Atari games, yeah.
Yeah, just like classics.
It's like calling PlayStation or games made specifically by Sony for PlayStation a franchise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Or like those weird Xbox games, same thing.
Yeah, we covered reboots a little bit in terms of how to make a franchise revitalized,
and those are hard to do well because you're gonna have it depends on how much you change.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you change something that people like can't get over, it's not gonna go well.
I've mentioned this movie before on our earlier episodes, but Blade Runner 2049, after the 30-year hiatus, worked because they kept the themes and the symbolisms and just the whole world building that was already established.
And sometimes it's like you could reboot something that didn't need to be rebooted, or the worst case scenario, you reboot something that was just a one-off. You're just like, we want to do it.
Yeah,
again.
I think wasn't that what some of the people's reactions were for Finding Dory? I guess
Finding Dory, as well as. And honestly, I kind of felt that because it's like, where do you go with Dory?
Yeah,
or with Finding Nemo in general.
Sometimes exploiting nostalgia like that is not the best idea.
And it was true too with
which one do you think?
Oh, it's kind of true with some of the Disney live action remakes.
Oh yeah,
and it's kind of like, why? I know why, because money.
Money. Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, reboots can be beneficial in the gaming sense too, because there's the Tomb Raider remakes. Oh God, I struggled with that sentence. Tomb Raider remakes were highly received, and now there's a third one coming out.
They don't even have to be remakes necessarily. They can just be, we're making another one, and it's going to look better because it's on a newer system.
Then there's the Metroid Prime 4 that people are really excited for, but haven't seen any footage of yet.
I don't know if you've heard of this,
or if I've told you 11 is coming out soon.
I don't know if I've told you this, but apparently there's supposed to be a Borderlands 3 announced this year.
I've heard the rumors. He's hoping. I'm less indifferent to that, but I would still like to see it. Borderlands is a funny game.
Borderlands.
I like seeing it.
It's one of the few great comedy games.
It's a good comedy game, yeah. I like it.
We might touch on that later.
No More Heroes is also a good.
Yeah, and it's
comedy
reboot isn't necessarily just like we're gonna tell the story again or kind of like shake up the franchise. It can just be like we're gonna release a sequel. And it's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been
you could
beyond
argue,
Good and Evil 2.
You could argue Halo 4 was a reboot.
Very true. It was under the new.
It was under 343, though. Contrary to popular belief, there were most of the same people that worked on the original Halos were and still are working for 343.
Mm-hmm. Destiny has evolved into its own thing now.
Yeah, Destiny. Oh boy.
That's
I wish it was doing better than it was. Sad face. I love the lore. For Destiny, but it just kind of fell flat.
Mm-hmm. Then there's lots of different reboots and remasters. I know Street Fighter, the 30th Edition collection, is coming out in May, which includes every Street Fighter game ever made except 5 and 4.
You know what's interesting? There are also like updates to games that have only been like that single game, like stuff like your Leagues, your Smites. I know I just mentioned 2 MOBAs, but like other games like that, and even WoW, where it's like in WoW's cases they're expansions, but like with League and stuff like that. You get these updates that change the art style, can change some characters around. You can kind of call those reboots.
You could even get a WoW update that's called WoW Classic and put you back in the original.
I mean, people liked playing it that way. Honestly, it's I know why Blizzard doesn't do it because it's more expensive and it's like you got to maintain different servers for each version. But I almost wish that they had a version of WoW for each expansion that you could just go back and play.
Yeah.
It would also make the game a lot more accessible to new players because now you jump in, you could be like, I gotta look up all the story that's happened before I got here.
And think of recently the Doom and Wolfenstein franchises being revitalized.
Doom did get a reboot. I forgot about that.
Yeah, the Wolfenstein series too. Oh my gosh.
I need to beat Doom.
I'm gonna beat Doom again because I love that game.
Doom had the unfortunate circumstance with me where it was like I finally picked it up and then it was like, oh, like 50 other games also came out.
Yeah, this guy, not even.
Unfortunately, I don't have 4,000 hours to invest into gaming in a month. Unlike you.
Yeah, I think the joke's on me though.
Yeah.
Less sleep.
You imply that I sleep.
Fair enough. So yeah, sequels and prequels also can lead to franchises being more well developed.
More well developed, even just given the backstory. Like as poorly done as the Star Wars prequels were, I really appreciate their existence.
They did build upon the lore of the Sith.
Exactly, they made the Sith more interesting, other than just they're the bad guys.
Yeah, Dark Lord of the Sith. I did like the reference in The Last Jedi to Darth Sidious because that was pretty fun. Glad that they acknowledge that happened.
And eventually, of course, an issue with prequels often is that you know where it's going to end up. Mm-hmm. Like, that Sidious will eventually be killed. You know that Vader is going to be Vader.
Yeah, some of the stuff you were leading up to, and it kind of just fills in the plot holes beforehand.
And obviously, I don't mean Sidious died in the third movie. No, he still died in Revenge of the Jedi.
Revenge of the
That
Jedi.
was the original title, actually. Fun fact. That was the original title of Return of the Jedi.
Makes sense.
Then Lucas decided it did not sound befitting of the Jedi to get revenge.
There you go.
So he was like, they are returning.
Revenge is not the Jedi way.
Exactly. But you know that one day Sidious will be on the receiving end of the words, kill him.
Kill him now.
Do it.
Do it. But
classic.
Yeah, it's just prequels can kind of set up what's already been established, but put it in a new way so that they build upon build upon the world that's already been done.
It's like why I really want them to go into the Old Republic era for Star Wars in a movie or at least a show. And I don't mean like the Clone Wars. I mean Old Republic, like Mandalorian Wars type of shit.
Same vein. I really like the Hobbit movies. I know that they weren't as good as the Lord of the Rings movies.
Lord of the
Rings movies.
One ring.
They weren't as good as the Lord of the Rings movies, but I really enjoyed them because they built upon the world that already existed. Because they went more into the wood elves.
Yeah, standalone they were fine, but it's just as an adaptation they were horrible.
Fair enough.
It's like how
I didn't read I read the Hobbit.
I read it because I took a science fiction fantasy class my senior year in high school.
Okay. There you go.
And a fun fact, we also read like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which Blade Runner is based on.
There you go.
But that's the other thing, where it comes to adaptations like that. They can be good movies, just be bad adaptations.
Yeah, like sequels too. They need to establish what's already been there and maybe build upon it a little more to create more questions and more.
And it also depends on if you want to end the story there or not. Because it's like Halo 3 was written as an ending, but also it left some openings.
That creates a big question with franchises. When do you end it?
Do you end it?
When do you end a franchise? And when do you do it?
We know WoW's story will eventually end, but at that point, do they just stop making World of Warcraft stuff, or do they do spin-offs?
The Game of Thrones story will end this next season. They're like, the show's over.
Yeah. And at that point, that doesn't mean that Game of Thrones is dead either. That just means that show's storyline is over.
Mm-hmm. There'll probably be a spin-off within the next couple of years.
Exactly. There could be games. There could be books.
There already are games. Telltale.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like spin-off games. Because Telltale was just doing the seasons.
Fair enough.
Telltale Interactive Experience. They call it Telltale Games because the other title didn't sound as good.
There you go.
That was a running joke in our Writing for Games class. But it's the issue because it's like when you stop a franchise's story, you're like, it's popular. We want to keep making it, but we don't know where to go from here. Or it's like we wrapped everything up. Now what?
Yeah.
Like that's why I wonder what Toy Story 4 is going to do.
There's definitely things that go on when you have a nostalgic franchise that you bring it back
basically
just because
Pixar.
Because people can't get over not having it.
Yeah.
Especially because people are always going to be. We're asking where's the Incredibles sequel until now.
Right.
Until we got it, because they were always asking for it.
Honey, where is my sequel?
Where is my sequel?
What'd you say? I said, where is my sequel? It's my worst Steven. Steven? I don't know why I said
You mean
Samuel. I don't know why I went to say Steven. It's my worst Samuel Jackson.
English, motherfucker.
You're one to talk. You're one to talk.
Yeah, you're right.
It's my worst Samuel Jackson impression ever, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of Samuel Jackson, that joke in Ted 2.
There you go.
You're Samuel Jackson. It's just like, who's he? You've seen any movie ever? He's the black guy. It's just funny.
What a good joke.
Like, honestly, I kind of want there to be a thing where just all of Seth MacFarlane's work becomes its franchise. It's like they all become connected, like Marvel and Pixar.
Oh my!
I would die if that happened.
That would be absolutely.
You know what? Speaking of
dangerous.
Star Trek, it's kind of getting a pseudo reboot with the Orville.
I mean,
It's obviously not calling. It's not calling itself Star Trek, but it's.
Well, Seth MacFarlane's a huge Star Trek.
He's a
nerd.
huge Star Trek fan. Like he was. I remember early on, he had said like if he could do one thing, it would be to do another Star Trek, and he got his wish.
There you go.
Like to have that man's career.
Have you watched the Orville at all?
I've seen a little bit. And
I have
it's
not
pretty
seen
funny.
it.
I
Tell us in the comments whether Orville is good or not.
You're just giving them all these prompts. I'm gonna have to copy later. And like, goddamn, why are you giving me extra work?
Hey, you're welcome.
You can do this one.
Well, anyway. So yeah, we've talked a lot about how world building can lead to a franchise and character development can.
It's like a little Lego bricks. Like
It's like little Lego bricks. You got to make a
each
cornerstone.
Each episode is
like
a different
It's a big layer cake, you know. Different flavors, eccentric. I'm just hungry. No,
I mean, same, but it's like the other thing is too. We've talked about themes, but you can still have different types of stuff. Like I wouldn't be shocked if Infinity Gauntlet. Like we know how Marvel's been famous for having their movies be a little bit more lighthearted than DC or the average superhero movie that we think of.
For the record, Infinity Gauntlet is the rumored title for Avengers 4, the one after Infinity War. So
what he said.
That.
I wouldn't be shocked though if that or Infinity War even have much darker tones because it's meant to be the final like wrap up of this story.
Yeah, and for some of the original characters who might pass.
Yeah, they may be killing off a lot of
Again,
characters.
it hasn't come out by the time this video's up, so
We don't know.
we don't have spoilers.
We would give them to you if we knew them. Because let's be real, this episode's coming out a while
This
after
episode
Infinity
is going to come out about 2 weeks after.
Unless you want to like fast edit it tonight and just put this out today.
Hey,
on Friday.
don't even worry about it.
It'll come out when it comes out. But we have like this like theming doesn't necessarily matter as much as just having that same universe, but it helps bind the stories together.
Yeah. It definitely helps when it feels realistic to the person watching it.
Right.
And the themes can connect with them on a realistic basis, and that the world feels fantastical enough for them to think creatively and to maybe think about what's already in it.
And it's like I've said before, something feeling like a part of the series is not necessarily important, but the parts of the story and the characters within it still have to act like themselves.
Of course. There's lots of stuff with maybe like Lord of the Rings, because it's such a fantastical world, but they don't explain it all purposefully so that you can have your own imagination.
Well, it's like, example, if they ever make an Arbiter game, which would be fun for Halo,
It's called Halo 2.
You're not wrong. They can't have the Arbiter cowering before someone because that's not what the Arbiter would do.
No. You can't compromise the characterization of a main protagonist that's already been established over an entire franchise.
If you're gonna have a character not act like themselves, it has to be a significant moment.
Yeah.
Like it can happen, but like if the Arbiter is cowering before someone, it needs to be like this person they're cowering before is incredibly intimidating,
or like
a huge
trauma
threat
or something.
Yeah, it's like there needs to be a reason. Like they can't just be a new person for no reason.
Yeah.
Like Iron Man can't, or Tony Stark can't suddenly be sober for no reason.
Yeah.
Which is one of the people's issues with Iron Man. It's like, oh, cool, he's an alcoholic.
Well, I mean, that's part of his character. That's part of how he was in the early days of the comics.
It's like it's not a franchise, but it's like with Always Sunny or with Friends. It's like you recognize that they're shitty people, but you still want to watch.
I'd argue that the Always Sunny people are shitty people and the Friends people are like A material. In some cases.
Yeah, they're not great.
They're not great, but they're better.
there.
They're better than the majority sometimes.
Well, yeah.
Always Sunny is not that.
Yeah, if your role model is someone from Always Sunny, get a new role model.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this has been a good discussion about franchises and world building and everything related to that. I've said that sentence like 1,000 times now, but I don't care.
He's trying to build a world where that sentence makes sense.
This is a franchise. This is a franchise. That's a franchise.
This is someone else.
His name's Francis, and franchise is the nickname. It's almost like it sounds the same, but it doesn't.
Wow, that got blurry there.
Wow. Jesus. But anyway, is Jesus a franchise? No.
If you really wanted to stretch it, you could call every religion a franchise, I suppose.
But anyway, thank you so much for watching. And if you have any comments about what your favorite movie, TV show, literature,
even just universe,
any fantastical universe that
any fantastical beasts,
hey, where to find them? But
where
anything that you have that would be interesting to us, please tell us in the comments so that we can.
Even if it might not be interesting, just put a comment.
Yeah, we might do some mentioning of it if we find one that's really, really cool.
Yeah. And though we film these 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah, I mean, But anyway, thank you so much for watching again. My name is Matt.
My name is Francis.
And we'll see you guys next time.
A little later.